Okay. I think at the end of the class, I will group you up into different teams for the final project. Okay. So actually, we want to finish all the presentation at the end of the semester in like 3 hours. So that means usually we will form around like 10 to 12 teams, no more than 12 teams. Otherwise, it's difficult to process all the presentation in 3 hours. So try to consider, currently we have 50 to 60 people in our group, in our lecture. It's a huge class. So I'm thinking maybe you can find either 5 or 6 partners together to form one team for the final project. Okay? So just try to consider in this case now, and we will have the team up at the end of the class. Okay? I will continue on the class, going on the class. Try to finish the material first, then we will doing the team up process. Is it okay? Just keep in mind what kind of partner you can have, and try to network a little bit. Okay? To find out your partners. Okay? 5 to 6 people. Okay? Okay, so today's class is not easy for those who don't have the background in EE. But I think it's okay because I leave the most essential part for you to understand. You don't need to worry about the origin and also how to develop those kind of equations. The important thing for you is just to try to understand the meaning of each term of the equation and how to use the equation. That's enough. Okay? Don't worry too much. Okay? When you come back home, when you got some time, you can come back to all the development of the equation. But for now, you just try to understand the meaning and the application. Okay? So now we need to go through the detailed top view and cross section of the CMOS process. Actually, you had these kind of things a couple weeks ago, but I think that most of you has forgot about the process. But now we want to use this process to do the real design. So we really need to understand the detail of each step. Okay. So now we look into the layout process of a CMOS. So for CMOS process, first we need to, for example, like we need to put the NMOS and the PMOS together. So remember, for the NMOS, we can fabricate the NMOS directly on the P substrate. So for CMOS process, you start up with the P substrate actually. But for PMOS need to fabricate it on top of the N substrate. But because of currently we are using P substrate, so in order to accommodate the PMOS on the same substrate, so we need to locally provide the environment. We call the N-well environment. It's like a small N substrate, large P substrate. Okay? So that local area is good for PMOS fabrication. So first we define N-well. The N-well, that means on P substrate, we define the N-well area and then dope it with like a P material, P-type material. And we can, N-type material. So we can change the P-type material into the N-type material in the very small region. We call it N-well region. So on the top of the N-well region, we will build up the PMOS. So on the rest of the area, we can build up the NMOS. Okay? So that's the first step. We define the N-well. Okay? The second time, we define the active region. The active region means later on, we will build out the device inside the active region. Outside the active region, there will be a thick field oxide grow. Okay? Remember, only inside the active region, you can see the silicon substrate. Outside this region, you see a very thick silicon dioxide layer grow from the substrate. 不懂，好。主动区的意思就是这个区域呢，之后我们要放我们的装置在这个里面。好，那这装置在里面的话，我必须要看到 silicon 我才能 doping 嘛，对不对？ 好，所以这边是看到 silicon 的，直接看到 silicon 的肉。除了主动区以外的，全部会被一个很厚的 oxide 包起来，埋在下面，因为它是直接长出来的。Thermal oxide will grow on the region outside the active region. So the device can be accommodated only inside the active region. Outside the active region, we will grow field oxide, very thick oxide. You remember the field oxide? The field oxide is the first oxide layer. It grows everywhere on the surface except the active region. So the field oxide, the thickness is around like 0.85 microns, pretty thick. Yeah. So it's for separation among different devices. So the field oxide looks like the structure here. This is a field oxide. So the field oxide, you can see a thick field oxide here to separate the devices. For example, we have a NMOS here, PMOS here. So between them, there's a thick field oxide to separate them. And also, we can separate NMOS to other devices. Okay? So only in this region, NMOS region or PMOS region, we define these two regions as an active region. That means inside this region, there's no any growth of field oxide. This is the first step, is the most confusing steps when people deal with the CMOS process. Okay, because this oxide is not a deposit onto the surface. It's grow directly from the substrate. 它直接长出来，它不是沉积上去的，就是氧化的方式，记得吗？氧化的方式长出来的。So this layer is directly grow from the substrate. It's not deposited by other process. Remember, okay? So the first step, we define this region as active region. Okay, active region. Those are active, and also this is small area is also active region. So outside the active region, you can see a 0.85 micron oxide will grow on the rest of the region, except the active region. Okay. And also the N well need to be defined a little bit larger than the active and also two active area. So for the PMOS, you can see there are two active regions. One is for your PMOS device. The other one is for the connection to the VDD, high voltage. Okay? But for the PMOS, you don't see the connection to the VSSB because VSS connection is easier. Okay? But still need to connect to the substrate. Okay? Okay, once you define this region, but you may ask how to define this region by only grow outside on the outside surface without the attack the inner part. The way is very easy. Actually, we deposit a silicon nitride layer and the pattern layer. So only this region, active region, with a silicon nitride, thin layer on the top. So when you grow thermal oxide at high temperature, the outside region will grow thermal oxide. The inside part, because of diffusion, you already have some material to block the oxygen diffuse into the substrate. So the active region won't have any thermal oxide grow in the active region. Okay? So no thermal oxide here. Outside we have a thick thermal oxide. So this region we call the active region. Okay? So after this one, you also need to take out the silicon nitride afterward. Then grow very thin layer of the thermal oxide, less than 10 nanometer, as an insulator. Then we will deposit polysilicon on the top, and then pattern the polysilicon, okay, in a gate area. Okay, so there's a defined polysilicon wire. So here, because we want to use this as a PMOS, NMOS connect to the gate connect to each other as an inverter. Okay, so it's a process for inverter. So you want to separate them. If you want to separate them into two different devices, you cannot connect the gate together. Let's only give you an example. Okay. So the gate was formed by deposit polysilicon on the top of the thin layer of silicon dioxide. It's not showing here because thin oxide is grow in the active region. Okay, and then deposit polysilicon, define the polysilicon. So this is from you the gate region. Then we do the doping, okay, on the two different active region. So on the PMOS region, we will dope P+. Okay, in the NMOS region, we will dope the N+, phosphorus. It's a boron and phosphorus. And remember, this region is inside the PMOS fabrication region, but this one is deposited by N+, is not P+, because you want to connect this part to outside the VDD, high voltage. Okay, so later on, one of the source, okay, at the end, will be connected to the high voltage by using the metal wire. This is a metal wire. Okay, after you have the doping of those kind of things, then you will deposit another oxide layer, the first oxide layer, to protect all the material underneath. Then punch a hole. We'll look at the cross section on these two regions and this region. So when you have the wire, okay, deposit on the top. Actually, we deposit material on the whole surface and pattern the metal by using lithography process. Okay, so it looks like the wire. Actually, we do the etching to take out the material we don't want. So leave the metal like wires. So the metal will connect the region you like to connect to do the connection. This is for inverter. Okay, so the two drain region will connect to each other. Remember, two drain. The PMOS, NMOS, the drain region will connect to each other. So it's one metal to connect the drain and the drain of the NMOS, the drain of the PMOS. Okay. And also the source of the PMOS will connect to the VDD. This is the VDD. So you deposit the same metal and define the metal only in this region. So these two parts will connect to each other, to outside. And the other part, the source of the NMOS will connect to the other side. Still, at the end, it will connect to the ground. Okay. So before that, you don't need to connect them one by one. They will connect to each other later on, together at once, to the ground. Okay. When you finally finish all the layout of all the IC device. Okay, this is top view, the very simple top view. So top view gives you only several important materials, including the doping area, the polysilicon, and also the metal. So it's not showing the oxide layer. For example, the first field oxide and the first oxide, second oxide is not showing here. Okay, so those layers can be seen only on the cross section. So now we will look into the cross section. So in the cross section, you can see the detail. Okay, now we do it again, but now we look into the cross section in addition to the top view. But the top view is important because you are drawing layout like this. The layout you draw is like this. Okay, but if you draw the layout without seeing the cross section, you will miss the connection. That's a problem because connection you cannot see them from the top. That's a problem. So now we look into the cross section. So now we do it again. So in the cross section, first we need to define the N-well. The N-well region, that means we need to define a specific region for PMOS fabrication process. And because we are using the P substrate, okay, P substrate, so the NMOS can be fabricated directly on the P substrate. But the PMOS need to fabricate on an artificial region, which has been transferred from P substrate into the N substrate. We call it N-well. Okay, because it's a small region, we call it well. Okay. So that's the first step. Then we will deposit silicon nitride, okay, on the active region, like I mentioned. Why? Because we want to grow thermal oxide later on. So we want to do the protection for the active region first. So the way to do the protection is by deposit silicon nitride on the whole surface, and they define the protection only in the active region. Okay? So after protection, the silicon nitride, okay, I have some English translation here. Sorry, originally it was Chinese, so I translated it so you can understand easily, right? So after that, we will grow under the protection of silicon nitride. We will grow field oxides on the rest of the area. So the whole surface, almost 91% are covered with field oxide. Only a very small portion, they are active areas which are protected by the silicon nitride layers. So in that case, during the thermal oxide growth process, the oxygen cannot be diffused into this region. So there will be no oxide, thick oxide formed in the active region. It's clear? Okay. So you outside here, you have a thick oxide layer. Okay, so after that, we need to take out the protection material, silicon nitride, and then regrow a very thin layer of silicon dioxide, only like 10 nanometer or even thinner on this region. Okay, we call the gate oxide. The gate oxide is so thin, so that's why in this process, the final cross-section structure here. Usually, we don't draw them in the cross-section. It's too thin. But it really exists. It's pretty thin compared to others. So we don't draw them, okay? But remember, it exists, okay? Most of people will ignore it, okay? It's not correct. Okay, let's come back to the cross-section. Okay, so after take out the protection material, we grow a thin gate oxide here. Gate oxide, you can put it down. Yeah, sorry, it's no English here. So these are two thin layers of gate oxide, okay? So after gate oxide deposit, then we will deposit polysilicon on the whole surface and do the definition by lithography. So only the gate region, you will see the polysilicon wire, okay, at the center of the device. So the polysilicon is sitting on the top of the gate oxide. So there's no direct connection between the polysilicon and the substrate. No connection, no contact, okay? Remember, no contact. So after that, we doping, okay? Either boron or doping phosphorus for PMOS or NMOS. Remember, the doping process, there is no, we only protect the PMOS part, okay? For example, you want to deposit boron, we protect the NMOS part by using the photoresist. Leave the NMOS region open. And also, because we have only thin layer of the silicon dioxide here, so the doping can penetrate, especially for like implantation, ion implantation. Ion implantation can give a high energy to the ions and can penetrate, the ion can penetrate those thin layers of the oxide and then deposit into the inner layer. Then we, after annealing, they will form source and drain region. And the important thing is that we use the polysilicon as a mask. Okay, it's important. If you want to do this by using the photolithography, it's not accurate because you always have some misalignment, like in our homework. Remember, in the homework too, if you have some misalignment, right? Your device cannot connect to each other. There will be problem, especially for most processes. It's very, very important. If the source and drain does not have some overlap with your gate, even the channel is open, there's no connection between the source and drain. So the alignment is very important. But it's not possible by using lithography to do the good alignment. So the alignment here is directed by using polysilicon. We call it self-alignment. Because polysilicon has like a 0.5 micron thickness. So when you do the ion implantation, so the ion will falling in onto the polysilicon instead of go underneath. So under the polysilicon region, there's no any dopant. But outside this region, there's dopant. So if you have a misalignment of your gate into a little bit distance off to right-hand side or even left-hand side, but you still can have a very good definition between your polysilicon and the source and the drain because you're using polysilicon as a mask. 听得懂这部分吗？就是因为你用多晶系做你的面罩，所以呢，多晶系这一层虽然可能有误差，它的对准可能没有对准的很好，但是不论你移到哪边去，它的这个 dopant 下来以后，都会是在 polysilicon 的两边形成你的 gate and source， 所以它不会有 misalignment， 就它们相对来讲是很准的，虽然绝对不准，但相对是很准的。这层非常重要，这层如果没有发明的话，现在的 CMOS 都不会 work， 没有人对得准的，不可能的事情，所以它叫自我对准，就是用 polysilicon 做面罩层做自我对准。所以 polysilicon 不论那层不论移到哪边去，它下面形成的这个东西自然就是对的。OK， 好，这个很重要。Self alignment, so it's important. Okay, so we apply borons on right hand side. So you have a PMOS device formed here, and on the other side, you have a arsenate or phosphorus deposition. So you have an NMOS forming here. So both of them are using self-alignment of the polysilicon structure as a mask. Okay? So it's important. So after implantation, and they will cover a thin layer of the oxide and do annealing. Because by depositing a thin layer of oxide, the dopant will not diffuse away. So they will be kept inside this region for annealing. Okay? So after the annealing process, you take out the thin oxide layer, then deposit the thick oxide layer. The thick oxide layer is for insulation, to cover the whole surface. Okay, so after this process, NMOS and CMOS, PMOS, both of them we can consider as CMOS has been finished, the fabrication has been finished. However, if you have only the device without the connection, you cannot make it work. Okay, so the rest of the steps are for the metal wire connection to provide the signal in and also the signal out. Okay, so for the metal connection, for example, the metal one connection, so because the whole surface has been covered by a thin layer of silicon dioxide, we call it oxide 1. The thickness is around like I cannot remember the thickness is around like 0.3 or something, or a little bit thicker. 0.5 I think, yeah. Can you, anybody remember the number? The oxide 1, let me come back. Oxide 1, sorry, it's pretty thick. 0.85, it's pretty thick. Polysilicon is 0.4, and oxide 1 is 0.85, okay? So here for CMOS, we need only one single polysilicon layer. But you want to do different device, for example, like CCD, they need 2 layers of polysilicon. So the CMOS process provide you, you can do 2 polysilicon layers. But usually we use only 1 layer. Okay, so on the top polysilicon, there will be oxide 1, 0.85 microns, it's pretty thick, to cover the whole surface. Okay, let's come back to the fabrication process. Okay, so after you cover the whole surface with a 0.85 micron oxide 1, now you want to do the connection of the wire. So you need to punch the hole on specific region to make the connection. For example, you want to connect the NMOS part, so you need to punch a hole we call the VO hole or call the contact hole. The contact hole, will be the etching on the top of the this region on the silicon oxide layer. So after you punch the hole here, 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 and here, then we deposit the metal on the whole surface. So in this case, because you already have a hole over here, so when you deposit the thin film will cover the whole surface, including inside the hole. So the condension can be made automatically. Okay? So you don't need to fill in the material by using another process, no. Okay. So when you're doing the deposition, the metal film automatically connect to the bottom. Okay. The things you need to do is just by define the region you want to do the connection, just as I mentioned from the top view. So from the top view, for example, you want to connect the two drain together for two devices. You just make the connection of the metal together. That's it. You don't disconnect them. Okay? But the rest of the area, you etch out the material by using the dry etching or wet chemical etching. So leave only the material here connect to each other. So now you connect the drain and source, but not other regions. So those definition is by your mask design. Okay, you draw your layout. Okay, to define the connection. Okay, so after this connection is the metal 1. Actually, you can do the same to the metal 2, metal 3, metal 4, metal 5, metal 6. In the MOSFET's current process, they provide only 2 metal layers, metal 1 and the metal 2. So between metal 2 and the metal 1, there's another oxide, and then you punch the hole again, then do the metal 2. And on the top of the metal 2, there's another final silicon dioxide layer we call the overglass, over the whole chip. Okay? So in total, finally, you will have there's a second one. So deposit second outside layer, then punch the VO hole, and then deposit metal 2. So he's not showing. It is not showing here. Is after this process, we will cover another oxide layer overall on the whole chip area. So there's another thick oxide layer to protect the whole substrate. Okay. So in total, if you count the number of the oxide layer from the bottom to the top, if you don't consider the gate oxide, in total you have 4 layers. The first one, field oxide. This one, field oxide. The second one, oxide 1, and oxide 2. Then overglass. The overglass is not showing here. Okay, so there's another one on the top. We call it overglass. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 layers. So you can use these 4 layers as a structure. Is it clear? Okay, but remember, oxide 1, oxide 2 are overglass. The silicon dioxide is deposited on the surface. Okay, but the first field oxide was grown from the substrate, so they are different. Okay, the first the field oxide, the first oxide, the field oxide, is grown on the substrate. The other 3 are deposited on the substrate. Okay. So there's a differences. Okay, so the detailed process, because in the future you are going to use this material and also process to design your own accelerometer. So now you need to be very careful and also understand the process flow and put them in your mind. Yeah.